Hello and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic. It's usually really important, but this is a grave topic because of death, the loss of Chadwick Boseman at 43 to colon cancer. And that is very unfortunate. I remember in 2016 when we went to watch his movie Black Panther. No, it wasn't Black Panther, excuse me. It was Captain America Civil War. That's when he first came out. And what a movie that was. He did such a great job. And we were impressed with him right from then on. And of course, he went on to do Black Panther and of course the Avengers movies, the final two Avengers movies. And he did a really good job. In my opinion, his best work was done from 2016 to date. And interestingly enough, his cancer diagnosis came up in 2016. So he's had to do a lot of acting, and a lot of really good acting at that, while having a diagnosis of cancer. And from all reports, he's had multiple surgeries, multiple tests, of course chemotherapy. So it's been a really hard road for him, and yet he did some fantastic work. So yeah, it will be a huge loss to the movie community and to the black community as a whole, because he portrayed the first black superhero, and he did a very good job doing that. So we want to talk about colon cancer. I had planned on doing this before, and I had been working on gut health because it's so important to health as a whole. But this recent occurrence, his loss, kind of really made us feel like this is something that we really have to do. Because believe it or not, colon cancer is one of the top causes of cancer in Nigeria and in Africa, and one of the top causes of death from cancer, along with breast cancer and prostate cancer. So it's very important that we understand colon cancer, the do's and don'ts of taking care of your digestive system, why the digestive system is so important, what are the threats to the digestive system, and most importantly, what you need to do to take care of your digestive system. Because your digestive system is not just about eating and going to the bathroom. It's a lot more than that. And I think, unfortunately, we don't, maybe as medical professionals, we don't bring this to the fore as we ought to. So it's very important that you pay attention and you take notes and you put these tips and suggestions that we'll be giving you into practice. As always, all we can do on TV is give you medical know-how. Basically, what we want to do is we want to give you some wisdom, a more rounded knowledge about health. But in the final analysis, you have to go to your healthcare professional, your doctor, to really, in terms of medical treatment and diagnosis, you have to go to them to get that done. So please do not self-medicate. You want to make sure that you get the right, how shall we say it, direction when it comes to your specific disease or that of your families. But as we said, this is general knowledge so you can understand how to take care of yourself, so you don't have to go to the doctor for treatment. So in a short while, we'll be right back, and then we'll start on with the main course. See you soon. Welcome back. All right, I wanted to throw out a few statistics about colon cancer before I go to the board. First of all, Americans in general have 10 times more occurrence of colon cancer than Africans, those who are living in Africa. African Americans, now this is where it gets interesting, African Americans living in the United States have 50% more colon cancer than whites do, and as much as 15 times more colon cancer than Africans do. So we are seeing that there's a genetic component, maybe there's a dietary and behavioral component as well.
This is the network service of the NTA. We now join our outside broadcast crew.
Shall we be seated? Your Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, the Speaker, House of Representatives, Governor of Ekiti State and Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Chief of Staff to the President, Honorable Ministers here present, Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Heads of extra-ministerial agencies of government, Permanent Secretaries, Resource persons, Senior government officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's day 2 of the Ministerial Performance Review. A Review and Retreat 2020, the first of its kind in the life of this administration. Recall that we had a retreat in August last year to usher the ministers and members of cabinet into their assignments. And 1 year after, we are holding this performance review retreat. We were here yesterday, but we also know that our president was away in Niamey, in Niger Republic, attending the 57th ordinary session of the Economic Community of West African States. We are glad to have him back, and he's here with us this morning. Your Excellency, Mr. President, you're welcome. To recap day 1, which was yesterday, and run us through the agenda for today, it's my honor and pleasure to call on the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. SGF, please.
Your Excellency, the President, Your Excellency, the Vice President, the President of the Senate, the Speaker, House of Representatives, the Governor of Ekiti State, the Chief of Staff to the President, Honorable Ministers, here present, head of the Civil Service of the Federation, heads of agencies, permanent secretaries here present, resource persons, senior government officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Yesterday, Your Excellency was quite eventful with very insightful presentations and charges, frank discussions, and fruitful deliberations. The day began with a welcome remark by my humble self, during which I referenced the presidential retreat held in August 2019, in which newly appointed ministers were each assigned priority deliverables across government's 9 priority areas. I noted the efforts of honorable ministers, permanent secretaries, and their respective teams in implementing projects, programs, and policies in the past 12 months towards delivering these mandates, and the support of my office, which provided the necessary impetus for it. I also stated the objectives of this retreat to include a review of government's performance in the past 1 year and the status of implementation of its policies, programs, and projects, to identify key impediments to implementation, and to strategize on how best to deliver on the balance of initiatives going forward. I subsequently provided an overview of how the retreat will run, and participants were urged to accord top priority to the deliberations. This was immediately followed by the opening address by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, who was ably represented by His Excellency the Vice President. In his speech, Mr. President recognized the implications of the unique challenges posed by COVID-19 global pandemic on the plans and priorities of government all over the world, including Nigeria. He acknowledged the efforts and notable achievements reported within the past 1 year. Mr. President highlighted government's response to COVID-19 in developing the 2.3 trillion economic sustainability plan, comprising fiscal, monetary, and sectoral measures to save lives, livelihoods, and the future. He stated that the economic sustainability plan lays emphasis on labor-intensive interventions in agriculture, light manufacturing, housing, and facilities management, amongst others. The President further explained the rationale behind the deregulation of the price of petroleum motor spirit, the PMS, and the adjustment of the electricity tariff regime as far-reaching adjustments with temporary pains but long-term gains to get the economy back on track. But in all of this, government has strived to protect the poor and vulnerable while increasing quality of service. He accordingly stressed the need to implement the economic sustainability plan programs vigorously and promptly to give succor to Nigerians at this very difficult time. In conclusion, Mr. President reiterated the purpose of the retreat and urged optimal contribution by all participants, as well as observance of all necessary COVID-19 guidelines while having fruitful deliberations. The Vice President thereafter presented the Economic Sustainability Plan as Nigeria's response to keeping the country afloat amidst the global crisis caused by COVID-19. He stated that the Economic Sustainability Plan is time-based, and any delay in the implementation would be catastrophic. It was pointed out that as at yesterday, we were on day 67 of the introduction of that plan. He projected relevant data that showed that the country was indeed facing difficult times with the COVID-19 impact on key sectors ranging from a contraction of -17% in trade to -83% for the retail daily shoppers. He also indicated that the main thrust of the economic sustainability plan is focused on addressing 5 areas, namely mitigating the shock, tackling vulnerabilities, job-intensive interventions, rescuing businesses, and repositioning the economy. He added that a major linchpin in the plan is the 1.3 trillion of the stimulus that is to be sourced from the Central Bank of Nigeria. He stressed that this link must not fail, as there is an urgency to implement the economic sustainability plan. The first technical session on experience sharing on driving growth in a crisis by Tony Blair, former UK Prime Minister. The former Prime Minister shared with us through virtual electronic platform lessons for leading in crisis. He emphasized the 4 most critical elements that universally apply to all leaders who want to make a difference against all odds. The combination of the 4 P's, namely priority, policy, personnel, and performance management, are proven levers that leaders in Africa and globally have employed to deliver results during their tenures. Responding to questions, he emphasized that there is a need to address corruption in governance, as well as for the leader to ensure that technocrats are in charge of critical priorities. He stated that constant attention of the leader is required to drive the 4 P's and stressed that governance is the main differentiator amongst countries. Then we had the breakout sessions. We also had breakout sessions along the 9 priority areas. Honorable ministers, permanent secretaries, and heads of agencies brainstormed on 4 themes, namely alignment of defining KPIs and annual targets for priority areas and mandates deliverables. Second, prioritize initiatives within mandate deliverables and the economic sustainability plan that can be synergized to create multiplier effect. And third, agreed structure for coordinated approach to delivery. And 4, resolutions to accelerate delivery. Outputs of these discussions will be presented later today. Then we had the second technical session, which is experience sharing on driving growth in a crisis, lessons learned, which was delivered by the World Bank Chief Economist for Africa, Albert Zufak. Using robust data and analytics, the Chief Economist, through virtual electronic platform, presented scenarios of the impact of COVID-19 on key indices of the Nigerian economy as basis for recommendations on the kind of responses we should be making. He highlighted areas where Nigeria has room to learn from what other comparators countries are focusing on in addressing the impact of COVID-19 on lives, livelihood, and the future. Drawing from lessons of other countries, he gave several recommendations, including strengthening the foundation for productivity, growth and private investment, investing in creating quality jobs, improving spending on agriculture, seizing the opportunity for industrialization. He also emphasized that digital economy is no longer a luxury, ensuring economic recovery before ramping up taxes. Faster implementation is key, ensuring collaboration and coordination, and continuing macro reforms. He advised government to follow the 3 I's, namely investment, integration, and inclusion. And the third technical session was delivered by the Chief of Staff to the President, on delivering the presidential legacy, a collective responsibility. In his papers, Delivering Presidential Legacy, a Collective Responsibility, the Chief of Staff to the President emphasized the importance of a sense of urgency in delivering the vision of Mr. President and Nigeria of our dreams. He reminded participants that the President is keen on delivering a legacy that will stand the test of time. His advice for delivering maximum impact were focus, collaboration, consolidation, and execution. Focus on quick wins, deliver physical infrastructure projects, ensure food security through investment in agriculture. Intra and interministerial collaboration between all MDAs. Consolidation of projects that can be delivered as one project and need to work as a team. Lastly, he advised on the need for timely execution of projects under each minister's mandate. The fourth technical session, managing relationships between ministers and permanent secretaries and CEOs of parastatals to accelerate delivery. In the last session of the day, Ambassador Babagana Kingibe, former secretary to the government, dissected how to make the most of the critical and often complex relationship between honorable ministers, providing political leadership on one hand, and the permanent secretaries and the chief executives of agencies providing administrative leadership on the other hand. He acknowledged fundamental tensions exist between the two levels of leadership who must work together to achieve the mandate of the ministry. He clearly delineated the responsibilities of all the parties according to statutes and public service rules and gave practical advice on how to make the most of this relationship. He also drew attention to government guidelines on the relationship between the honorable ministers and honorable ministers of state that could help minimize conflicts. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Your Excellency, the Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will conclude this recap of day one with snippets from the presentation of Mr. Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Thank you for your attention.
I will say to any of the presidents and prime ministers I work with, manage your schedule. It's one of the number one things. Otherwise, from morning till night, you're having meetings, but you're not always having meetings that are about the things you really should be having meetings about. And you've got to manage your time extremely carefully. And then another challenge is the bureaucracy of government itself. But what I learned over time is that a bureaucracy, any bureaucracy in any country, they're often good at managing things, but not so good at changing things. Often, especially in today's world, you need to change things, not just manage them. So the challenges of government in a time of crisis, when you need to make the change, or even in, if you like, in peacetime, in normal government business, these challenges are immense. What are the lessons of the change process that I learnt? I would group these lessons around what I call the 4 Ps. Number 1, prioritization. Prioritization, for me, is about very specific things. What are the 4 or 5 things that you as a leader, whether at the state level or the federal level, what are the 4 or 5 things you really want to get done so that at the end of your term, whatever else you haven't done, you're able to say, these 4 or 5 things, I did them, I got them done. So the prioritization is very specific, measurable objectives. Second P, policy. One of the things I learned about politics is that at a retail level, it's quite crude. You know, you've got to shake the right hands, get the right people on side, make people happy, give the right speeches. But at a deep level, when it comes to policy, it's actually a complicated intellectual challenge. And if you want to translate your priorities into the right policy, you have to think that policy through very carefully. And here's one good piece of news, which is around the world, someone somewhere has had the same problem and has found a solution. The third is political leaders often miss it, and it's personnel. Getting the right people in the right place to help you deliver. You need, for your priority areas, to have your best people, your most capable people, working on those areas, focused on them and around you. And my view is you can change virtually the whole way a government operates with a handful of people, provided they're of the highest caliber. What you find in politics is that sometimes you have to put people in positions for political reasons, and sometimes you've got the freedom to make the best choice just simply based on your assessment of ability. And what I always say to the leaders I work with is, because I've made these mistakes myself, whatever you need to do by way of politics, don't put those people in charge of the things that really matter to you. Things that really matter to you, make sure those are reserved for the people who can really do the job. Otherwise, you'll never get things done. People. And the fourth is planning and performance management. The difficult skill set of politicians is always to do with practical implementation and logistics. And, what I learned when I was Prime Minister is that the fact you sit around the cabinet table and take a decision doesn't mean anything happens. You think it does because you're the leader and you think, I'm a powerful person, so if I say this should happen, it will happen, but it doesn't work like that. Tracking and performance managing the implementation of your priority policies is absolutely core. You can set up this new structure, but it requires the constant address and attention of the leader. Only the leader's authority can really make things happen. The biggest difference between countries that succeed and those that fail is governance. You can take two countries side by side, same resources, same potential, roughly same population, one succeeds, one fails. Why? Because of governance. You could look at Rwanda and Burundi. You could look at Colombia and Venezuela. You could look at Poland and Ukraine, South Korea, North Korea. So this is why it's important. It's a science today, government. And there are lessons we can learn, and there are ways we can implement and govern better.
Thank you, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, for that comprehensive recap of day one. As we want to go into the business of the day, can our friends in the media please take their leave? We will require their presence later in the afternoon or early evening when Mr. President will speak to close this retreat. So can the media please take their leave, and also the military band? Thank you. Thank you. The session we are going to go into now is one in which we will look at the first year scorecard and summary of ministerial stroke MDA performance. And this is an independent assessment. It's not done by anybody in government. So, everybody concerned should have this at the back of their minds, that it is an independent assessment, not subject to the opinion of anybody within government. First year scorecard and summary of ministerial and MDA performance, an independent assessment. I'm going to yield the microphone to the two people who will take us through that session that will last 60 minutes. The session will last 60 minutes, and after those 60 minutes, we will then engage in contributions, in questions, in answers for another 20 minutes. My pleasure to invite Mr. Joseph Tegbe and Odu Obi Buaku, who will take us through the session. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President, Your Excellency, the Vice President, please permit me to stand on existing protocols. I'm Joseph Tigbe, the Senior Partner and Head of Advisory Services in KPMG. I'll be making the first section of the scorecard presentation. Your Excellencies, please permit me to put the scorecard in context. This scorecard, especially for this year, should be taken from the perspectives of the review of the
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Well, there's a myriad of things. I think, first of all, we have to go back to writer. You are very well known for teaching skills. Your students speak a whole lot about you. Miss Nigeria competition.
I said, let's pick them up, let's take them back to Nigeria, and let's teach them a different kind of job.
Yeah, but this will pick it. It's there. Hello, the program is The Woman, and my name is Elizabeth Abai. As always, I am excited when I sit here because I know I'm going to have another lovely 25 minutes with another exciting personality. My guest today is a pest setter, a woman who's done a whole lot to help not just her immediate community, but the entire Nigeria, and to a large extent, outside of Nigeria. Don't ask me who my guest is. Just sit back as I bring you my personality of the day after this time out. If you just joined us, you're right on time as I'm about to introduce my guest of the day, a woman who I simply call the first of firsts. She is a lecturer foremost, and of course, the first female dean in Nnamdi Azikiwe University. She is the first female professor of mass communication, the whole of Nigeria. She was at a point, a very long time too, if you ask me, the chief of staff of the same state. She has been commissioner for same state, that's Anambra State, at different capacity. Please join me as I welcome Professor Chinyere Okunna. Nice to have you. Thank you. All right. I was watching you not too long ago when you were giving your, a lecture as a resource person at the MBC lecture day, and I could see the zeal, I could see the passion. I felt so connected. For the length of time you spoke, I was wrapped to my television set, watching and learning. I must say thank you for that opportunity. You talked about COVID and media and broadcasting. Before I even go into your personality proper, could you refresh us again? What has COVID got to do with media at the moment?
COVID, one of my generation who are not that young, we have never seen anything like this in my entire life. So for Nigeria in particular, even the world, it has completely shattered expectations and ruined dreams. I can't imagine. The entire year is almost gone, and nothing, virtually, has been accomplished, so to say, all because of this virus. So the COVID has, it has destabilized the world, but in many ways also, it has also energized creativity, innovation. See the kind of thing you're doing now. It's one of them. Has also unleashed innovation and people being creative in the way to make sure life continues.
Yeah,
that's an advantage.
You know, I was just going to say, without COVID, you know, I would have been able to get this opportunity to speak with you about this time. I have actually been planning to see when I can come to Anambra State, but I'm in Anambra State today, even without leaving Abuja, and you're in Abuja, even without leaving Anambra State. That's a good one. Mass communication, indeed, most of the social sciences, they are not a place where a lot of people would ordinarily want to push to that level, especially a woman, because I know you were doing this while you were making your home and making 6 children. It wasn't easy. Tell me, what was the propelling factor? What kept you pushing?
You know, from when I was relatively young, I always thought I should be where I could create knowledge. And for me, one place to create knowledge is at the higher institution. So I always knew somehow I would teach at this level, so to say. And in communication, growing up, so to say, growing up in communication, it was a man's field, so to say.
Thank you.
Journalism, I'm sure you know. The older generation of journalists were all men, so to say. It was a male-dominated field. And even in journalism education, I remember when I began teaching communication. If you went anywhere, University of Lagos, one woman, IMT Enugu, one woman, Bayero University, no woman, all over the country, women were not teaching mass communication. You know, one of the first papers I wrote years ago was titled Female Faculty in Journalism Education in Nigeria. Implication for the status of women in Nigeria. Because my argument was, teachers are role models. And when a lecturer is teaching, your students are watching you and emulating you. And if only men were teaching journalism, journalists will end up graduating with a male-oriented perspective on issues because no women's perspectives were being given. So my first paper was, one of those early papers was to encourage women to come into journalism education so that there will be role models for journalists in training so that when they left the university, they will be able to present both a male perspective and a female perspective. And today, it gladdens my heart that in my lifetime, before I retire, honestly, you know, when women put their minds to anything, they overcome. Most journalism schools now have been taken over by female lecturers.
Kudos to us. But let's get back to you from the very beginning. A lot of people ask me that question and I answer, and now I see my superior and I need to throw back the question. What pushed you into journalism? What led you into journalism, mass communications precisely?
The media are powerful. I said so in Abuja last week. They are awesome in their power. Journalists or journalism is only profession where people who are there have the capacity to gather huge quantities of information, to package the information professionally and disseminate it very effectively. No other profession can do that. So, having chosen to be in communication, I felt that if I was able to help to push the young people out there, empowered with the right knowledge and the right attitude towards women and everything, that would be a place to be.
A good one. You know, you're speaking, as you've been talking, I've been, smiling because you're gradually luring me to the world of teaching journalism and broadcasting. And let's see if you finally get to succeed. But for now, just sit here and continue to ask the questions I'm asking. You're a lecturer. How prepared do you think the schools are for the children, especially in view of the COVID-19 you earlier on talked about?
I happen to be a member of UNIZIC, Nandasco University COVID-19 committee. So my subcommittee will be churning out information, which is everywhere now, about the COVID-19 protocol. Recently, we reopened our secondary school, university secondary school, and the primary school for exam classes. And it's working well. We make sure we put in place the right things, face masks, sanitizers, hand washing facilities, everything. It's something we are doing for the older students who are the undergraduates. And then above all, a COVID-19 testing center is being established in the university. And so Anambra Petros also are building a huge facility for isolation center and treatment center. So there's a testing center coming up. There's a facility, housing, treatment, and isolation center. So I'm confident that if students come back today, they will be in safe hands.
It's a cheering news because some of us who are parents are concerned about our children going back to school. And much as we want them to go to school, get it all done with, and move on with their lives, we also want to see them alive and well. And it's in good light to know that your university is actually setting up testing centers. I want to believe that while you're putting these plans on, in the pipeline or setting them up, you also have capacity to do a follow-up, monitoring and all that, because students will come in just like typical people I see today in Nigeria, wear the face mask, 2 days, 3 days, then they remove it. The law begins to go down. Let's take you away from the school environments, just like the Anambra state government took you away from the university for a little while. And while you were there, you served first in the capacity of the Commissioner for Information and Culture. I recall I was 2006 to 2009, and you still continued as the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, right? I'm in order, right?
Budget?
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you also served as the Chief of Staff for about 2 years within the same state.
Combination with all the others.
With all the others, you were doing that.
I was still Commissioner for Planning. I was still Commissioner for Budget. I was still Coordinating Commissioner for Development Partnership, along with being the Chief of Staff. It was a killing job.
My question is, how many heads do you have? How many hands do you have? How can you be two commissioners and the same time Chief of Staff? How does that work?
What you do depends on how you feel about what you're doing. I worked with a governor whose vision for Anambra State I strongly believed in. He was a man who had the capacity to lead Anambra State to the destination he chose. When he came in, he chose as the vision of the state the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals. And that was perfect because the MDGs were working in multi-sectors. And Peter Obi, who was the governor, chose that MDG vision as the vision. So it wasn't really anything stressful for me because I was doing the things I believed in. It was a tough job, but I think I could.
You just said it. It was a tough job, but you succeeded. I needed to hear that bit because when I was looking at it, I was like, is this person 3 in 1 or 1 in 1 or I don't know, but you just said it. When you love what you're doing and you put in your best, you get to do it and do it well. And you've done you've done wonderfully well. But I wonder how you manage, how do you know which cap to wear at the time? Because I also know you're a resource person for a whole lot of organizations, governmental, non-governmental. You're always there talking, including for UNESCO, a whole lot of them. How do you, know when to, move from this compartment to the other one?
No one power women have. They have this capacity for multitasking. every woman does that. I don't know whether it's inbuilt in us. I won't say that because anybody can learn that. But our culture has prepared us to do various things and not give excuses. It was a tough job. It was also somehow dangerous because I was also the chairman of the Committee on Good Governance for Anambra State. So it was my job to call the governor to order if he wasn't doing well. And luckily for me, I am much, much older than he is. So it was, I found the courage. Because if I didn't find that courage and things were going wrong and they blamed him, I knew I would be blamed somehow. So we had to find the courage. The committee had to find the courage. Say, Your Excellency, you cannot do this. It's not good enough. Or you're doing well. You're performing very well here. So somehow we were coping with different tasks. No, only one salary, not
only one salary. I was going to ask you.
One salary.
5 jobs, and you collect one salary. No.
One salary, who job has got. So it was a challenge, but it was a challenge we were able to face because we believed.
I sing the song, money is not everything. Once you're satisfied, I was taught from a little girl to always give, by my mom. And then when I didn't have money, I was kindergarten, primary school. She said, you can give somebody a smile. You can give somebody a how are you. So money is not always everything. And talking about giving, we have done so much, giving to the society, even beyond where you live. I know that you have the Ademora, Okoa or Okona Scholastic Foundation. It's been on since 2003 up until now at different categories. I tried to count. I think I got up to, is it 6 or so? I could be wrong. From best mass communication students and all that. A lot of lecturers will go to school and come out, teach, earn their money and go home. My lecturers, nobody gave me the best of anything. But here you are, not only giving best students, best graduating student, best in this, you've also built a house, legacy building, and donated to the school. I know about it. It's a surprise, right? Share with me.
Yeah.
What is the motivation?
I don't know, honestly. I think somehow, again, it depends on what you believe in. I believe in young people. I do a lot of mentoring. And the older I become, the more I am driven by the desire to make sure the next generation and the ones after them, my children, my grandchildren, that are generations better than mine. And right now, I have a mentoring group called the Professor Okonna Mentees Group. They're in various universities across the nation. Because very recently, I'm sure you know, the federal government approved the unbundling of the mass communication program. But instead of having one BSc degree in mass comm or BA degree in mass comm, there are now going to be 7 departments, and we hear there'll be an 8th one on strategic communication. And given that, an influx of young people came into teaching of communication. And I looked at them. Many of them were coming in teaching for the first time, unprepared, lacking in confidence, but raring to go. And I felt I could form a mentees group across universities and make sure they are drawing inspiration from us. So as we are exiting, the younger generation should be learning from us. And that's one. Mentoring has always been my strong point. So doing the things I do is part of mentoring. And you look around you too. You may not be very wealthy, but there are people you are better than. In my community, I come from Rupo community in Dunukofia. There are a number of very wealthy people there. But there are also some people who cannot pay their children's school fees in secondary school. And when they talk to you, I felt I should have a scholarship foundation. So every year, like you know, there are 2 secondary schools. The best 5 after the SS2 exam. The best 5 in one secondary school and the other 5 in the other secondary school. I pay the school fees for the SS3 and pay all the exam fees. And then you look around. I teach in a federal university where the school fees for a long time, the school fee was 20,000 naira, basically. But there are parents who cannot pay that, believe it or not, in Nigeria. And some of these parents come from my home community. You may be amazed. 20,000, what is it to somebody who is rich? Nothing. But those parents, you don't even know them because they are selected by my home community town union. They apply to them, they know who they are, they know how poor their parents are, and they select the poorest of the poor. And I pay just that small amount of money. Come and see the joy in those parents. So giving is something that can be done not by the very rich. Even the poorest can give a smile, 1 naira. You will not believe how 5,000 naira can uplift somebody.
It's quite touching, like you said, and I truly believe giving gives you immense joy. All the God bless you get as you give out, it's not for nothing, because the blessings, you may not know where it comes. It may not be in your business. It may be in health. It may be in your child. It may be in your grandchildren, like you already mentioned. And when you mentioned grandchildren, I said, well, it's just that I know that she has grandchildren. You look very relaxed with all the job around you, and you're still very young. What do you do for relaxation? Don't tell me you're writing books. I try to count your books.
You're right. And honestly, I don't know. As I even get older, I think my schedule is more hectic now than a few years ago. Because I say it, I think I'm at the pinnacle of both my age and my career now. My profession, my career, my experience, everything. So we're going to start descending. So I'm up there, and like I keep saying, I say it all the time, I do the things I love to do. If you offer me something I don't believe in, and I know I don't have the capacity to do, I reject it. So doing those things tend to relax me. So I'm not really stressed up by the things I do. Above all, I try to exercise. I live in a compound of my own. Not anything strenuous. Once every morning, or at least 3 or 4 times a day, I walk around my house only, trying to do fast walking, nothing strenuous. I eat anything, but I make sure I eat healthy food. So these may be the answers to what I'm doing. And
with all that, with all this hectic program, I'm sure you still have time for your grandchildren. How does that make you feel? They say whenever it comes to grandchildren, parents are weak.
One of my greatest joys is I live in an estate in Oka, where 2 of my daughters are living also. So the grandchildren are virtually surrounding you. And I don't have much time for looking after them, but at least they give me joy watching them. And I know their parents are struggling also to make sure they shine in their own careers. And I encourage them, because I remember, maybe I should tell this. When I was a young woman, I had wanted to go to Leicester, University of Leicester, to go abroad to do a PhD. I had a scholarship, full scholarship from an overseas religious group, WAC. And I had a baby who was less than 1 year old. So I couldn't go. First time I deferred admission. He became about a year old. I looked at him. I couldn't take him along. I deferred admission again. And they warned me not to do that anymore. I was just wondering what to do when University of Lagos restarted their PhD program in mass communication. And off. Before I left, I'm talking about young people now grappling with difficulties. I called my 2 mothers, my mother-in-law and my mother. My dad was long dead by then. I said, I love education. They know. And they say, yes, we know you. You're very brilliant. And I say, I want to do a PhD to do better in my job. They say, yeah, we'll support you. I say, 2 of you have to come here and take care of this baby. and your son-in-law and your son. Well, I'll go and get that degree there. So they divided the chore. My mother said, Mama, you will come and spend 6 months. Then you'll go home. My mother-in-law, you'll come and spend 6 months. So I harnessed all my resources. It was they who were here. Looking after my children were quite young. It was they who were here looking after the baby. My husband is a very busy man. He's a medical doctor in private practice. So they came in there. So my point is to avoid stress. Capture all your opportunities and tie them into a bunch. Do the things you love doing. Improve on your capacity to do things. And make sure you grab every opportunity and support to enhance. So my mothers were here. My husband was happy. The children were taken care of. My mothers taught my children more than I even did. So if you say I'm looking well and I have coped, it's because I made sure every opportunity, every support I was entitled to, I grabbed it and appropriated it to make sure I was doing well. So
Even with the extended family, I enjoyed the same privilege, and till tomorrow I'll continue to ensure that as long as it depends on me, the extended family system must stay because nothing beats it.
There was a time I was 25 years old, 20 years old, 18 years old. Time doesn't wait for every young woman. So do the things you can do and do them as efficiently as you can because they are time bound. Very soon, your youth is over. Even your middle age is over and you're racing towards your old age, so you don't have any regrets. I look back on my life honestly, without boasting. I'm fulfilled. I don't remember anything I would like to change.
Thank you so much. It's not easy to find someone who beats the chest and said, I look at myself today and I know that I am fulfilled. But here is Professor Chinyere Okunna, who has just told us that she can look back and say she has nothing to change. She is fulfilled with her life. And if I take away a little bit, she said that she got to that level because she does what she knows she can do and makes her happy. That way, stress is removed. Why don't we tag along? By the way, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you very much. All right, on that lovely note, we say bye-bye on this show, and we believe that you will join us again next week. While you're waiting for the next exciting moment with us, please practice what you've learned today. Harness your opportunities. Never let it go away. And if you haven't picked anything today, please ensure that you recognize the extended family. It is important. And I think I want to go with the more we are, the merrier we become. On that note, bye-bye. My name remains Elizabeth Abai, and the program is The Woman.
Thank you.